Puzzles are an important part of the tomb formula, I think, so we're excited to have more tombs in the game, featuring more puzzles in the game. You'll still see a spectrum of difficulty of puzzles, so some of the secret tombs are larger and in some cases might have more difficult puzzles, but you're still going to find the full spectrum, and we try to place them in the game in a ramped sort of way. But we really do celebrate puzzle design as a unique facet of our gameplay formula, and I think we take that as a challenge, not just to create the fiction of a tomb space, but really to deliver on people's sense of using their wits and resourcefulness and smarts to suss out how they really are going to unlock these secrets. And so we're pushing that quite a bit. We still take an approach of leveraging real world systems like physics and things like that we had very much a focus on the ability to understand cause and effect within the world. So you're not going to find a ton of sort of arbitrary logic puzzles necessarily, but you will find a lot more ancient themed puzzle spaces, but really ask the player to leverage their sense of how the world works and physics and things like that. So you get sort of a combination of our 2013 reboot aesthetics, but infused with a lot more of that nostalgic scale and ancient space.
When you guys put such a great emphasis on pacing and moving things along, how do you reconcile that with the series tradition of having puzzles? Is the solution to have the difficult stuff always optional?
Not necessarily. We have, and again, difficulty will be on a ramp so that later in the game, even the critical puzzles will be harder.
Harder than the last game even?
That's a good question. I mean, our intent is to challenge the player, but we don't want average players getting into stalemates with these puzzles. So some of the things we're doing to really push the sense of accomplishment with overcoming some of these tombs is including what we call nested puzzles. And this was actually common in classic Tomb Raider games, that you might have multiple sides to a room or multiple things that you need to do in order to solve the main puzzle. And that really allows you to actively tinker with these different elements. So rather than just standing there, face to face, scratching your head, wondering what to do, that you're navigating this environment, you're finding elements that you can toggle or states that you can create as a player and putting those together, but you may have to do one half of that and then do some crazy traversal to find where you're going to do the other half of that. So the pacing still is mixing up puzzle solving and traversal, and in some cases you might even have combat, although we do very much want to create ancient spaces that haven't been discovered yet. So a lot of times Lara is going to be the first one cracking into these places. These tombs will take you longer to solve, but it's still a more active exploration of interesting physics systems and cause and effect systems, but they all add up to that grand final getting through that door at the end of the room.
Tell me if this is the wrong way to think about it. I think that was a common thing from critics, is they said, we want more puzzles, we want more tombs. But at the same time, do you find that in focus testing, people don't like puzzles just because it's so easy to get frustrated with them?
No, I mean, I think puzzles are hard to tune, that you'll find that you may have half of the audience just getting it very quickly and others not. So one of the challenges is just making sure that there aren't a large number of people that are confused by a particular puzzle, but also still providing challenge for people that want challenge. Getting a little bit into the design choices at play, things like combat often scale a little better. So a difficult mode for combat can really create two different experiences from the same combat setup. But oftentimes puzzles, you really have to get that aha moment or not. And it's hard to sort of have too much difficulty variation procedurally within that. So we do have to design to some amount of common experience. But again, that is where the really pushing some of the difficulty in the secret tombs, but also pushing the rewards for that. So it's not just I'm seeking this out just because I want to, but I'm well rewarded for seeking this out. So it is still a balance of trying to add a certain amount of challenge and scale to the core path tombs, but also still pushing this world full of secret tombs as a way for people to pursue additional challenge and additional puzzle and rewards.
In a reboot that some would describe as gritty, how do you make puzzles make sense within that world? I feel like in the last game you guys did a pretty good job of it, but even every once in a while It's like, why is this dumb puzzle room existing? Like on the Endurance, for example, like having to move the thing in like the track. It's like, why is the track laid out that way? It's the dumbest thing.
Yes, it is a challenge sometimes. We strive to create puzzles that make sense in the environment. But again, we also want them to be puzzles, and there's a certain game design element. So we hope to take mechanics that the player understands and can play with, but present them in a way that makes sense in the environments they exist in. And as I mentioned, one of the pushes this time is to make sure a lot of times that those environments are ancient spaces. And we still have some puzzles in modern spaces, but certainly there's been a push to have that convergence of not just a puzzle space, but something that very much does feel like a tomb. And for me, part of that is just walking into a space and for a moment being in awe of what it is, that you feel like it's grounded and it could be real, but it's almost so improbable in its scale and its construction that you're in awe of it. And that's part of making the puzzles make sense this time, is it's not always necessarily a confounding security system of the ancients, that in some cases it's really Lara just manipulating the space in a way that subverts its original intent or things like that. So again, just back to celebrating the unification of ancient puzzles, but really still maintaining a sense of real world puzzle solving techniques and gameplay systems that the players can understand and play with. I think the most important thing to us is really to live up to that promise of tomb raiding and make sure that as much as this is a game about traversal, exploration, combat, that it's also very much about tombs and puzzle solving, and we always strive to find the right balance for our audience in that respect. So we've heard the feedback and we're excited to share some of our new tombs with everybody.